The bathroom door shook under his shoulder like a desperate animal trying to break out. Inside, water sloshed violently. Then my sister's voice, high and panicked, cut through the steam. "Stop, stop, she's right there." My husband's fist pounded again. "Open this door." He barked the same voice he used when he wanted the world to obey him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I simply turned the deadbolt until it clicked loud final and laid my palm flat on the door like I was sealing a coffin. Then I called my brother-in-law. When he answered, I kept my tone calm, almost polite, like I was ordering coffee. "You better get over here now." A beat of silence. He must have heard something in my voice because he didn't ask questions. He only said, "Where are you?" "At my house," I replied. 5 minutes. The moment I ended the call, the pounding stopped. Not because my husband had given up, because he realized what was coming. Then headlights washed across my living room curtains and a car door slammed outside. But it wasn't one, it was two. I came home early because the grocery store had the rotisserie chickens on sale. And at 32, that counts as a small victory. It was a Thursday, ordinary, boring, safe, the kind of day Americans build their lives around. I'd finished my shift at the medical billing office, grabbed a bag of oranges, and drove home thinking about nothing bigger than dinner and laundry. My house sat on a quiet street where lawns were trimmed and people waved from porches. The kind of neighborhood where older couples still walk in the evenings, arm in arm, and everything looks peaceful from the outside. That's why it felt so wrong the second I stepped inside. The living room was dim, curtains drawn, the air smelled like someone's perfume, not mine. I heard water running down the hall, the steady hiss of the shower. At first I thought maybe my husband Mark was homesick. But then I heard laughter, a woman's laugh, soft, familiar. My stomach tightened so fast I tasted metal. I walked down the hallway slowly, each step louder than it should have been. The bathroom door was cracked open, light spilling out, steam curled into the hall like a warning. I pushed the door wider and there they were. Mark was in the bathtub. My sister Tessa was in there with him, hair damp, shoulders bare, laughing like this was some harmless secret. For a half second my brain refused to translate what my eyes were seeing. It was like watching someone else's life through a window. Then Tessa saw me, her smile dropped. Mark turned and his face did something I'll never forget. Not guilt, not shame, calculation, like he was already deciding which lie would work best. "Hey," he said quickly, too casual. "It's not." I stepped back and shut the door without answering. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I expected rage, I expected screaming. Instead, my body went cold and efficient. I slid the lock on the outside latch, an old privacy lock we'd installed years ago when our nephew was small and liked to wander. Then I turned the deadbolt. Click, click, a silence thick as wet towels. Then Mark's voice rose sharp. "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't respond. I walked to the kitchen counter, grabbed my phone and scrolled until I found the number I'd never imagined I'd need. Evan, Tessa's husband. I pressed call. Evan answered on the second ring. "Hey, we still on for Sunday dinner?" I stared at my hand on the counter. My wedding ring glinted under the kitchen light like a joke. "Evan," I said, voice low, "you better get over here now." "What?" But his tone shifted instantly. "I'm at my house," I said. "They're in the bathroom." There was a pause so long I heard his breathing change. "Who's in the bathroom?" he asked, already knowing I didn't dress it up. "Mark and Tessa in the tub." A sound came through the phone, not words. Just the soft, broken noise of a man's world tilting. "I'm coming," he said. "Stay there." "I will," I replied. When I hung up, I finally heard the pounding. Mark slammed the bathroom door from the inside. "Open this door," he shouted. "You're acting crazy." Tessa's voice followed, sharp and angry, even in panic. "You can't do this, let us out." I walked back to the hallway and stood with my shoulder against the door, listening to them argue inside like trapped thieves. "Mark," I called Stilcombe, "you have 5 minutes." He went quiet because Mark wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of witnesses. Then the driveway gravel crunched under tires, a car door slammed, then another. Footsteps rushed up the porch steps, heavy, urgent. Someone knocked once hard like they weren't asking permission. I opened the front door. Evan stood there, face grey, jaw clenched so tight the muscles jumped. Beside him was Deputy Randall, his cousin, still in uniform, eyes alert. Evan didn't look at me first. He looked down the hallway like he could see through walls. He swallowed. "Is it locked?" I nodded. Evan stepped past me without a word, and when he reached the bathroom door he didn't pound. He leaned close. Voice so quiet it sounded deadly. "Tessa," he said, "open the door or I will." Evan's voice through the door was so low it felt dangerous. Tessa, he said, open it right now. Inside, frantic shuffling, Mark hissing. Get dressed like this was a small inconvenience instead of a life burning down. Then my sister's voice, sweet pleading, floated through the steam. Evan, don't do this. Deputy Randall stepped closer. Ma'am, open the door. For a long beat, nothing. Then the inside lock clicked. The knob turned. The door cracked open and humid air rolled into the hall. Mark appeared first, wrapped in my robe, hair, damp eyes, already rehearsing innocence. Behind him, Tessa clutched my towel to her bare shoulders. Mascara smudged like she'd tried to cry on command. Evan stared at them like he'd walked into the wrong house. Mark forced a laugh. Evan, buddy, this isn't what it say. Evan, cutting eyes on Tessa, tell me. Tessa's lips trembled. She glanced at me once like I was supposed to rescue her from the consequences. It was stupid, she whispered. Evan's voice cracked. Stupid is for getting milk. This is a bathtub. Mark stepped forward. Everybody needs to calm down. Deputy Randall's tone stayed even. Sir, keep your hands where I can see them. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I just pointed down the hall. Out, I said, both of you. Mark blinked, offended. You can't kick me out of my own house. Evan turned on him. Don't say own like she's not standing right here. Deputy Randall lifted his phone. I'm documenting what I see. He captured the open bathroom door, the steam, the robe, the towel, the timestamp. Boring details that become priceless when people start lying. Mark's gaze flicked past us toward the living room, toward the desk where our paperwork lived. That split-second glance told me everything he was already thinking about: accounts, documents, what he could hide. Evan's voice came out ragged. How long? Tessa shook her head, crying harder. Evan, please. How long? He repeated. Mark tried to cut in. This is between me and my wife. Evan looked at him with pure disgust. No, he said, it's between you and every person you decided didn't matter. Tessa's shoulders slumped. Since spring, she whispered. Spring. That meant months of Sunday dinners, holidays, smiles across tables, Tessa kissing Evan's cheek while Mark carved the roast like a decent man. Something in me went quiet, like my heart locked itself in a room so I could keep standing. Evans swallowed hard, then faced Tessa. Pack a bag, he said. You're not coming home tonight. Deputy Randall shifted his weight toward Mark. Sir, he said, you're leaving the residence for now. Go gather essentials, nothing else. Mark opened his mouth to argue, then closed it when the deputy's hand rested near his radio. Mark turned to me, voice dropping into that tone he used when he wanted to win. We can handle this privately, he said. No lawyers. I met his eyes. Too late. His mouth hardened. You think you're going to take me for everything. Then my phone buzzed, one sharp alert from our bank app. A transfer pending. Mark's eyes flicked to my screen and the smallest smile touched his mouth like he'd been waiting for that moment. Listen carefully, he said. Cheating doesn't mean you get the house. This is a no-fault state. Half is half, and if you try to ruin me, I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. The threat hung in the hallway, thick as the steam still spilling from the bathroom. Deputy Randall's eyes narrowed. Sir, that's enough. But Mark kept going because he thought fear was a leash. I know where every dollar is, he said. I know what you can prove, and I know what you can't. Evans' hands curled into fists, then loosened like he was forcing himself to stay human. You're still lying, he whispered. Mark's smile was thin. I'm protecting myself, he said. And in that moment I understood with icy clarity the bathtub was only the beginning. The real fight was going to be what came after. Mark left that night with a duffel bag and a smirk he tried to hide behind hurt feelings. Tessa left wrapped in Evan's jacket, sobbing like she'd been the one betrayed. And the moment the door shut behind them, my house went quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt emptied out, like someone had stolen the air. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my banking app again. The transfer Mark had triggered was still pending. He'd tried to move money right under my nose. I took screenshots. Timestamps, account numbers, every detail Michael Hart would have called boring and every seasoned attorney knows is gold. Evan stood in my doorway, face hollow. I'm filing, he said quietly. Tomorrow, I am too, I answered. The next morning I met with an attorney in a small brick office near the courthouse, one of those places with faded certificates on the wall and a coffee pot that tastes like it's been working since 1989. Her name was Susan Caldwell, early 70s. Silver hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain, the kind of woman who'd seen every lie a person could tell and still kept her pen steady. She didn't ask for the drama first. She asked for the facts, joint accounts, she said. Yes. Retirement, his 401k, my IRA, mortgage, both names, life insurance. I think I'm still the beneficiary. Susan nodded once. We'll confirm and we'll be careful. In many states, once we file, there are automatic orders about moving money and changing beneficiaries. We don't play games, we play clean. I swallowed. He said because it's no fault, cheating doesn't matter. Susan's expression didn't change. In a lot of places, he's mostly right. The affair isn't what wins a divorce case, but money does. And conduct with money, hiding it, spending it, transferring it absolutely matters. I slid my phone across her desk with the screenshots. Susan studied them, then looked up. He tried to drain the account while he was still wet from the bathtub, she said flatly. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. That sounds insane when you say it out loud. People are predictable under pressure, she replied. They reach for the same weapons they always use. She leaned forward. Here's what you do right now. You open a new checking account in your name only. Your paycheck goes there. You do not empty the joint account. You do not get revenge by moving everything. You keep your half safe, and you document every penny he tries to take. What about the house? I asked. Susan tapped her pen. We ask for temporary orders, exclusive use of the home if there's intimidation or instability. We ask the court to freeze asset movement beyond normal bills, and if he's already transferring money, that helps us. Evan texted me from his truck outside a hardware store. Tessa's mom is calling everyone. She's saying you set her up. I stared at the message and felt something old and bitter rise in my chest. Of course she was. By noon, my phone was buzzing with relatives and church friends I hadn't heard from in months. Sweetie, my aunt said, voice heavy with judgment. You don't want to destroy your marriage over a mistake. A mistake, I repeated, watching my hand tighten around the phone. Honey, family is family, she insisted. Don't air dirty laundry. I kept my tone polite. Thank you, I said, and ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. Susan looked at me over her glasses. They'll pressure you to be nice, she said, because nice makes everyone else comfortable, but comfort is not the same as peace. That afternoon, Mark showed up at the house with a different face than the one he'd worn in the hallway. He stood on the porch holding roses like it was a movie scene. His voice was soft. Can we talk? Deputy Randall's number was still in my recent calls. I let Mark see me glance at my phone. The roses lowered, Mark's eyes hardened. So that's what this is, he said. You're going to make me the villain. You did that yourself, I answered. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Listen, we can do this quietly. We can split things without lawyers. Like you tried to quietly move our money, I asked. His jaw clenched. I was protecting myself. No, I said you were protecting your exit. Mark's expression shifted. Sweetness gone, control back in place. You realize, he said, if you push this, you'll lose. Half is half, and I know where everything is. I met his stare. So do I, he laughed once sharp. You think you're smarter than me now? I didn't answer. I simply closed the door. 2 days later, Susan filed. Temporary orders were scheduled. Mediation was set. And here's the part that would have made anyone watching think I'd lost my mind. At Susan's direction, I agreed on paper to something that looked like surrender. Mark could keep the truck. Mark could keep the living room set he paid for. Mark could even have temporary access to certain funds under written accounting and court oversight. When Mark read the draft agreement, he grinned like a man who thought he'd won a war because he'd taken a chair. He didn't notice the line Susan had slipped in so quietly it felt harmless. Full financial disclosure required, all transfers subject to review, misuse subject to reimbursement and sanctions. Mark signed with confidence. And I let him because sometimes the fastest way to expose a liar is to give him enough rope to keep talking. The mediation room wasn't a courtroom, but it felt just as cold. No jury box, no judge's bench, just a long table, a worn American flag in the corner, and a retired family court judge acting as mediator, Judge Harland, late sevens. Quiet eyes that missed nothing. He had the calm of a man who'd watched people destroy themselves with pride. Mark showed up like this was a business meeting he expected to dominate. Crisp, button-down, confident handshake, that same practiced smile he used when he wanted to appear reasonable. Tessa wasn't there because her mess had its own lane. Now Evan had filed 2 days earlier, and I'd heard through the grapevine that he'd moved into his brother's spare room, a proud man reduced to a suitcase. Mark sat across from me and slid his paperwork forward. I think we're close, he said almost friendly. I've been fair. Susan Caldwell didn't react. She simply opened her folder and laid out copies like cards on a table. Judge Harland folded his hands. Before we talk settlement, he said, I want to confirm something. Both parties understand that full financial disclosure is required, and that any attempts to hide assets can affect outcomes. Mark's smile never wavered. Of course, Susan's voice was calm as a lullaby. Your Honor, Judge Harlon, my client has concerns about recent transfers. Mark turned his head toward me with a look that said, don't start this. Susan slid one page forward. This is the pending transfer from the joint account the night of the incident, she said. Time-stamped, destination account listed. Mark leaned back. That didn't go through. Susan nodded. Correct, because my client caught it. Judge Harland lifted his eyes. Mr. Carter, why were you moving funds at 9:47 p.m.? Mark gave a small shrug. I panicked. I didn't know what she was going to do. Interesting, Susan said softly and flipped to the next page. Let's talk about the spending before the panic. Mark's smile thinned. Susan placed a simple spreadsheet in front of the mediator, rows and rows, neat and merciless. These are charges from the last 6 months, she said. Gift purchases, restaurant bills, hotel deposits and cash withdrawals that don't align with normal household spending. Mark scoffed. You've been stalking my accounts. Susan didn't blink. They are joint accounts and I'm not stalking, I'm documenting. Clear as throat, Judge Harlon adjusted his glasses and scanned the sheet. His finger paused. Jewelry store $2,800. Mark's jaw tightened. Anniversary gift. Susan turned one page. Here is the receipt with the delivery address. She didn't even look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. Mark's eyes flicked to the paper, then away. Judge Harlan's voice stayed even. That address belongs to Susan, answered polite as church, Mr. Carter's sister-in-law. Silence settled over the table. Mark tried to laugh, but it sounded wrong in the room. So what? I bought a gift, that's not illegal. Susan turned another page. It's not the gift that concerns us. It's the pattern and the funding source. She slid out a bank statement with a series of ATM withdrawals highlighted. These withdrawals occur on days when my client's sister was in town, Susan said, and we have text messages confirming cash needed. And don't tell her. Mark's face hardened. Those texts could mean anything. Susan nodded once like she'd expected that. They could, which is why we subpoenaed the rest. Mark's posture shifted tiny, but I saw it, the confidence slipping, the calculation returning. Judge Harland leaned forward. Mr. Carter, if you used marital funds to support an affair partner or to conceal assets, the court can consider reimbursement to the marital estate, attorney fees, sanctions. You understand that? Mark's throat bobbed. This is exaggerated. Susan didn't raise her voice. Then explain the credit card opened 3 months ago. Mark blinked. What credit card? Susan slid a final sheet across the table. A card in your name only, Mr. Carter. With the billing address changed to a post office box, statement balance $9,600. Primary charges, hotel stays and online transfers. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. I watched him realize too late that the rope he'd been given wasn't for me. It was for him. Judge Harlan's tone sharpened a hair. And we have another issue, he said, tapping the paper. Your wife's retirement account beneficiary. Did you attempt to change it? Mark's eyes snapped up. No, Susan's voice stayed smooth. He tried. The institution flagged it because of the pending divorce filing. That was the moment Mark's face truly changed. Not anger, not charm, fear. Because older men like Mark think the rules are for other people until the rules look back. Judge Harland sat back. Here's my recommendation, he said. Exclusive use of the home to the wife during proceedings, a financial restraining order, no transfers beyond ordinary bills, reimbursement to the marital estate for documented misuse, and Mr. Carter will pay a portion of attorney fees. Mark's voice went sharp. That's ridiculous. Judge Harland looked at him like he was a child arguing with gravity, then take it to court but don't expect the numbers to disappear. On the way out, Mark leaned toward me, voice low and poisonous. You think this makes you powerful? I met his eyes calm. No, it makes me safe. In the hallway, I saw Evan across the corridor, shoulders hunched, papers in hand. He looked up and our eyes met, 2 people who didn't choose this war but were done bleeding for other people's appetites. He gave me the smallest nod. Then I heard soft footsteps behind me. Tessa stood at the end of the hall, face bare, eyes swollen, clutching her phone like a lifeline. For the first time, she didn't look victorious. She looked terrified. Tessa didn't walk up to me like a winner anymore. She hovered at the end of the courthouse hallway, shoulders, tight eyes swollen, clutching her phone like it could protect her. The bright lights made her look smaller, younger, less like the golden sister everyone always made excuses for. When she finally stepped closer, her voice came out thin. Can we talk? Mark was still down the hall arguing with Susan, his pride louder than his common sense. Evan stood near the vending machines, staring at the floor like he was afraid the building might collapse if he looked up. I should have walked away. Part of me wanted to, but I heard Judge Harlan's quiet words in my head. Comfort is not peace. So I nodded once and led Tessa into a small empty conference room off the hallway, grey carpet, plastic chairs, a box of tissues that had probably seen 100 endings. The door clicked shut behind us. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Tessa's face crumpled. I didn't think it would turn into this, she whispered. I stared at her. Turn into what consequences? She flinched like I'd slapped her. I know, she wiped her cheeks hard. Mark said you two were basically done. He said you didn't even want him. I let out one slow breath. And you believed him because it made what you wanted feel acceptable. Her eyes flashed with shame. I was jealous, she admitted, voice shaking. You always looked stable, like you had it together. Evan and I have been struggling. Money, stress, his mom's health, everything. Her throat tightened. And then you had a house, a husband, a life that looked snort safe. I didn't soften, not yet, so you climbed into my bathtub. Tessa's shoulders collapsed. I hate myself for it, she whispered. I believed she hated the fallout. I wasn't sure she hated the choice. The door opened quietly and Evan stepped in as if he'd been standing outside the whole time. His eyes were red-rimmed but dry, like he'd cried all his tears already. He looked at Tessa. Tell her the truth, he said, voice flat. Tessa swallowed. It wasn't just the affair, she admitted.